Noel is an ugly loser who gets mocked for having a useless talking skill. However, everything changes when he manipulates the strongest adventurers to form the strongest clan and starts cracking everyone. The story begins a few years ago, back when a gate to the demonic realm suddenly opened in Noel's hometown, unleashing a horde of demons. However, Noel's grandfather, Brandon, who is a type of demon hunter called a seeker, geared up to protect Noel and single-handedly wiped out the entire horde. After the battle, he was gravely injured, but in his final moments, Noel approached him and tearfully swore that he'll become the strongest seeker in the world, just like him. 2 years later, Noel becomes a seeker and joins a rookie party. During a dungeon raid, he stands behind to direct the battle progression while his party members, Tanya, Walter, and Lloyd, follow his orders until they defeat the monsters. After the battle, Walter praises Noel's class for making their battles easier, but deep down, Noel knows that his class, the talker class, is actually the trashiest because it only allows him to invoke words that buff his party's combat strength while leaving him totally powerless. Just then, the Monster Queen suddenly appears and releases a poisonous gas around Noel, which suffocates him. Noticing this, the others try to save him, but when the smaller monsters overwhelm them, Walter screams at Noel to snap out of it and give them orders, and Noel immediately starts the counterattack against the Monster Queen. Firstly, he invokes the Tactician buff voice command to boost his party's overall abilities, but while they fight, Tanya spots 3 monsters nearby and panics. Seeing this, Noel helps her remain focused with another command, then he freezes 2 of the monsters with his magic gun's ice bullet. As the final monster charges at him, Noel orders Lloyd and Walter to quickly hit the queen with their strongest attacks, which they do, and narrowly escapes getting skewered into small chops, as the smaller monster also dies. Later that evening, Noel and his party members return to the capital to share their earnings for the day. But Tanya complains that their pay isn't enough for such a risky job. At this, Noel responds, telling her that there are more high-paying jobs than this, but since the government only gives out such jobs to the big clans, he suggests that they start theirs right now. Shocked, Lloyd gets uncomfortable as he reminds Noel that starting a clan costs $20 million and that they only have $12.8 million saved, but Noel promises to cover the rest of the charges by himself. At this, Lloyd starts whining like an annoying iPad brat, claiming they're too inexperienced to run a clan. However, Noel argues it's better to start now and learn on the job than to keep procrastinating, and then asks for their response. Although Walter immediately agrees, Lloyd asks Noel if he's really serious about this, and Noel swears that he's ready to leave the party to follow his dream of becoming the strongest seeker if he opposes his suggestions. To avoid that, Lloyd eventually folds under the pressure, and they end the meeting on a good note. 2 days later, Walter suddenly rushes into Noel's room and tells him that Lloyd and Tanya betrayed them and fled. Confused, Noel thought of giving them the benefit of the doubt, but after reading the note they left behind, he learned that Lloyd had made some very bad investments and used all their party funds to pay them off, then fled with Tanya to avoid getting caught, all of which really pissed him off. He asks Walter how he found out about the note, but Walter tells him that the landlord of Lloyd's lodge gave it to him earlier and told him that the scumbags snuck out around 8 the previous night. Irritated, Noel knows they must be traveling on foot to avoid leaving a paper trail, so he tells Walter that they'll ask around till they figure out where they are. As Walter starts threatening to destroy Lloyd, Noel lets him know that even if they catch up to the scumbags, they can't get their money back ever again. So if they're going to get revenge, they need a plan that'll ruin Lloyd and Tanya's lives forever. Moments later, Noel storms into the Seeker's Tavern with Walter, gets the attention of every Seeker dining there, exposes Lloyd and Tanya's crime of embezzlement, and offers $2 million to anyone who can capture them alive. After a brief silence, a lanky dude named Wolf walks up to Noel and then asks if he knows where the criminals are. Although Noel says he doesn't know their location, he gives Wolf some information his party can work with, and almost immediately, Wolf, his party, and a few other Seekers rush out to begin their search. Shortly after, an old washed-up Seeker calls Walter and Noel to a corner and tells them that he saw Lloyd and Tanya on his way back from a job. When Walter asks where, the cunning jerk tells them to pay him the $2 million he promised for that information. At this, Noel unleashes his inner Saul Goodman and coerces the main into accepting the $1 million for snitching. The moment the old man reveals Lloyd and Tanya's last seen location, Noel immediately instructs Walter to join the old Seeker's party at the South Gate and wait for him while he attends to something urgent first. A few hours later, Noel joins Walter and the others at the South Gate, but before they move, Walter asks him if he's really confident that he can fight Lloyd and Tanya, even if things go south, and Noel assures him that he can handle them. When asked why, he tells Walter that it's because he never trusts anybody in blind fate and had always had a contingency plan for any allies betraying him. So to him, this is just one of those things that happens. Later that evening, Noel and his minions finally track Lloyd and Tanya down to a small village in the plains. After surrounding them, he stuns them with a voice command to keep them from fighting back and drags them to a graveyard to interrogate them. After some small talk, Noel calmly asks Lloyd to explain what he did with their reward from their last raid. When Lloyd confesses that he used all the money to pay off a debt, Noel finally realizes this inconsolable scumbag actually gambled away all the $12.8 million he entrusted to him. Despite being exposed, Lloyd never showed any remorse for his actions because he didn't feel like Noel and Walter had any right to point fingers at him. He even tries to gaslight them by complaining about the leadership burdens they put on him. But Noel kicks the fool in the mouth and reminds him that nobody forced him to be the party's leader. Soon after kicking him a few more times, Lloyd starts coughing up blood and begs for mercy. Noel naturally ignores him, but just as he's about to continue kicking, Tanya begs him to stop hurting Lloyd. Disgusted, Noel reminds her that his kicks are rated E for everyone and don't discriminate against women, so if she wants him to stop hitting Lloyd, then she must be ready to take his beating for him. Hearing this, Tanya starts stuttering, but Noel then invokes a talker skill called Confess, which forces one to tell the truth, on her, and watches the disgraceful woman admit to being Lloyd's accomplice. Even after getting exposed, Tanya still avoids accountability like a modern feminist, as she accuses Noel of illegally using mind control skills for personal gain. However, when Noel reminds her that the law allows him to use it to make criminals admit to her crimes, Tanya realizes she's cooked and shuts her trap. Just then, the old seeker from earlier starts demanding their $1 million, but once Noel tells him to chill a little, he starts accusing Noel of duping them. To shut him up, Noel sucker punches the old fart in the chest, knocking him out. Then he shifts his focus back to Lloyd and Tanya. Not long after, an off-brand James Charles from the French Revolution arrives in a fancy carriage, and the others instantly recognize him to be the most infamous slave trader, Finocchio. After the niceties, Noel coldly reveals that he's going to sell Lloyd and Tanya to Finocchio as slaves to cover their losses. When Tanya tries to refuse, Noel threatens to hand them over to the military police so they can be sent to work in the mines for the next 10 years, which is way worse, and she immediately shuts up. With that settled, Noel has Finocchio appraise the duo and propose a reasonable price for both. Shortly after, Finocchio proposes $6 million for both of them, which is way lower than their initial pricing, and claims it's because of a weird policy that's forcing the Rice to cut back expenses. Hearing this, Noel raises the price to $15 million, and the moment Finocchio starts freaking out, Noel promises to illegally fudge the sale price to increase their value as slaves, so that Finocchio can make as high as $90 million on their resale, even with the insane policy. Since Finocchio's a greedy fool who's always looking to make a quick buck, he ultimately agrees to the deal. As they prepare to leave, Tanya begs Noel one last time to change his mind. But when Noel refuses to budge, she turns to Walter and tries to leverage his affection for her to force him to help her. When Walter refuses to help, she goes crazy and tells him that he'll die a pathetic virgin. Shortly after Finocchio leaves with his new slaves, Noel pays the old seeker his $1 million and returns to the capital, determined to continue growing to be the strongest seeker. Getting there, Noel tries to talk Walter into joining him so that they can rebuild their party from scratch. But unfortunately, Walter now fears getting betrayed again, so he apologizes to Noel and quits being a seeker altogether. The following day, Noel sees him off at the Capitol gate and then leaves to start the party again from square one. A few days later, while Noel chills in the club to scout new party members, Wolf approaches him and tries to recruit him into his party, but Noel takes his time to consider it. When Wolf continues pestering him, his party members show up, and a female elf amongst them, Lycia, trash-talks him just to get him off Noel's back. Just as Wolf's about to respond, Noel responds to his request, telling him that he'll join their party if they make him the leader, and the other members surprisingly agree. As their current leader, Wolf is heartbroken, but as he's about to defend himself, a gorgeous chocolate baddie with some serious Kardashian-level milk jugs and drip shows up, introduces herself as Alma, and tells Noel that she's there to become a seeker under his party. Intrigued by her elusiveness, Noel immediately sets up a meeting to discuss the specifics. After the niceties, he asks for her class and rank, and Alma says she's a C-ranked scout. At this, Noel immediately develops an interest in her because he knows scouts are important trackers to have during dungeon and abyss raids. For his final question, he asks her why she wants to become a seeker, But Alma says she's not concerned about that, because she's more interested in his identity as the grandson of the legendary Overdeath, which is the nickname Brandon was given in his glory days. Confused, Noel asks her what his grandfather did to her, and when Alma says that Brandon, or Overdeath, sliced off her grandfather's right arm, Noel fears she might be back for revenge. However, before he starts panicking, Alma assures him that she's there just to see what kind of seeker he's becoming, and Noel, satisfied with what he's hearing, apologizes on Brandon's behalf. Then, he asks for her grandfather's name. The moment Alma introduces her grandpa as Alcor Judicali, the entire club goes silent, as if they just saw a ghost. And that's because Alcor, now deceased, used to be the legendary assassin who founded the notorious Society of Assassins. After a brief silence, a huge, roid-infested musclehead named Logan gets up and starts trash-talking Alma for entering their sacred tavern with such a stained identity. Alma clearly knows that the idiot's throwing his weight around, but before she reacts, she asks Noel for permission to beat the life out of the gorilla, and Noel permits her. At this, Alma dodges Logan's first strike, slaps him to his knees, then she raises her right foot, letting him peek at her chocolate-flavored buns, and axe kicks the guy to a quick nap. Shocked by her strength, Noel immediately hires her on the spot, but later on, he treats her to some fried buns and takes her outside to discuss better. While she munches on her buns, Alma tells Noel how scared and embarrassed Alcor was of Overdeath after losing to him. But Noel ignores that discussion and moves on to ask if she truly spent her entire life training in the mountains to be an assassin. When Alma affirms that she was, he asks why she didn't join the society, and Alma says it's because they didn't think she was a good fit. At the time, her strength was unmatched, so even after she easily passed her strength trial, the society's current leader Simon still rejected her because he planned to rebrand the society from an independent secret organization into a government-affiliated group that focused more on espionage than murder for hire. For that to be successful, Simon didn't need assassins like her, who were still trained in the old ways, which is why she was rejected. Moments later, Noel takes Alma deep into the woods for training, but on the way there, he teaches her the importance of the Talker class's buff commands, as well as how they can affect the entire course of a battle. When they arrive at their training site, Noel tells Alma that he plans to buff her with his class and make her catch a horned rabbit monster, so he can see how compatible they are with each other on the battlefield. Alma gets a little confused at first, but just as she's about to run her mouth, Noel explains to her logic-resistant brain that he basically wants to make fighting much easier for her. That said, he asks whether she has the Axel skill as a scout, and Alma tells him she does, and can use it to move at 5 times her normal speed. Noel then asks whether she had always been able to go that fast from the start, but Alma says she hasn't, because she had to train her muscles and bones to avoid destroying them while running. With that settled, Noel has Alma scout about 13 horned rabbits within a 200-meter radius. Then he buffs her with the Tactician Battle Voice command, and tells her to stack her Axel skill to the maximum, so they can see if she'll be able to run 6 times her normal speed. Afterward, he set his stopwatch to count down 10 seconds to gauge how much time she would need to catch one rabbit, and then begins the training. Almost immediately, Alma increases her Axel speed 5-fold and catches all 13 horned rabbits in the record time of 8.6 seconds. By the time the training's over, Noel expresses his shock over how quickly Alma adapted to his buffs, especially since it's their first time pairing up. Alma asks if they'll be doing any more training, but Noel tells her training's over because they have to take on their first request as a 2-man party. Alma immediately starts fidgeting as she thinks they're going on an abyss quest, but Noel suddenly brings out a letter from the mayor of a faraway village he once helped, and reveals that they'll be traveling there again to help them take out a bunch of bandits. After traveling the meadows for several hours, Noel and Alma stop by at Eudora to rest for the day and try checking into several luxury inns around town, only for them to be rejected every single time. By nightfall, they finally get a decent room to sleep in, but since it has just one bed, Noel decides to sleep on the floor, while Alma takes the bed. As a girl who's lived in the woods her entire life, Alma asks him why they can't sleep together, and Noel says it's because his whiner might do something stupid by midnight. With that said, he showers and comes out minutes later, shirtless. When Alma sees his abs, she ogles his perfectly lean muscles, which confuses him, and then explains that she just feels sorry for him because no matter how hard he trains, his useless skill will never let him become the ultimate seeker. Noel knows this already, but even still, Alma's words affect him so much that he smacks her in the head and tells her to mind her business. By midnight, Noel recalls everything Alma said that evening, as well as the things Brandon promised to teach him when he was still alive, and becomes emotional. By dawn, Noel wakes up to find Alma sleeping dangerously close to him with almost nothing on, and her soft, succulent milk jug stuffed in his face. Terrified, he tries wiggling his way out of paradise, but Alma pulls him closer, forcing the dumb virgin to smack her in the head. Some hours later, Noel and Alma finally arrive at the village and visit the mayor to check in before fulfilling his request. After exchanging pleasantries, the mayor invites them in and serves them some tea. Minutes later, Noel catches the mayor's little daughter, Chelsea, spying on them from the other room, so he says hi and then moves on to discuss the specifics of the request. Soon after getting the thieves' hideout location from the mayor, he tells the mayor he's charging $200,000 as an upfront payment, with $300,000 to be paid upon completion. The mayor surprisingly pays the advance without haggling over the price, and although this surprises Noel, he can't really complain, so he ends the negotiation and sets out with Alma. On the way to the hideout, Chelsea approaches Noel, wishes him good luck on his hunt, and leaves smiling like she just met her guardian angel. Seeing this, Alma teases Noel for having the innocent girl wrapped around his fingers, but Noel isn't trying to get on Epstein's island on merit, so he shuts her up quickly and continues moving. By nightfall, they arrive at the thieves' hideout, only to realize that way more than 20 thieves are chilling there. Upon further investigation, he spots their ringleader, a wanted man with a bounty of $2 million, named Gordo, and decides to take a quieter approach. After discussing his plan with Alma, he activates the talker skill, Link, to share his thoughts with her at range. Then he has her activate her stealth skill, which turns her invisible, and dives into the hideout to take her position 10 meters away from Gordon. Once she's set, Noel activates his talker skill, Stun Howl, which stuns the entire band of thieves, and orders Alma to murder Gordon within the time limit. Almost immediately, Alma activates Axel, Quick Attack, and murders Gordon before he can even blink. Then, to keep the others busy, she murders the other thieves, until Noel shows up, flashbangs the rest, and shoots them all. Shortly after, they return to the mayor's house and present Gordon's head to him as proof that they've completed the mission. But before paying them, the mayor invites them to eat with them, and Noel follows him in. A few minutes into dinner, Chelsea joins them, reveals that she's been assessed as a swordswoman, and asks for a few tips from Noel to become a good seeker just like him. However, while Noel gives her tips, the mayor sends a suspicious signal to his wife, and she walks further into the house to bring out a bottle of wine. After that, the mayor stops their discussion and starts telling Alma and Noel some bogus stuff about the wine being $100,000. With Alma and Noel remaining quiet, he pours them each a glass and urges them to drink the wine to celebrate his daughter's new path as a seeker. Noel can already smell something fishy going on, so rather than drinking the wine, he twirls it and urges the mayor to take the first sip. At this, the mayor gets nervous and tells Noel he doesn't drink, but when Noel asks why he spent $100,000 on wine if he doesn't, the mayor remains speechless. Eventually, Noel accuses him of trying to poison them with the wine so he could avoid paying them and steal their money and gear, but the mayor demands that he prove his accusations. Firstly, Noel tells the short fool that he lied about the number of thieves to cheap out the reward. Then he brought out cheap-smelling wine that's almost spoiled, poisoned it, and served it to them. And lastly, his bloodlust was through the roof since he brought up the wine. When the mayor still refuses to admit to his crimes, Noel uses the confess voice command on him, and poor Chelsea listens to her father admit to poisoning the wine to murder Noel and Alma and steal all their gear. Immediately after, Noel pounces on the useless man, gouges out his right eye, and threatens to remove the rest of his limbs one by one. The mayor begs for forgiveness, even offering to pay the $300,000 he owes them, but Noel demands that they give him every last coin in the house if he wants to live. The mayor refuses to do that, as he claims he has debts to pay to the Gambino mafia, but just as Noel's about to finish him off, Chelsea rushes to her parents' room, brings out all the money they have, and offers it in exchange for her father's life. The mayor begs Chelsea not to give Noel all their money, or else they're doomed. But since Noel couldn't possibly care what happens to the mayor's family now that he's tried to poison them, he takes the money and leaves with Alma. As they exit the house, Chelsea curses Noel for being a bad seeker and leaving her family to die. But Noel leaves anyway. On the way back home, Noel spots a 3-star regalia airship belonging to the Goat Dinner clan floating in the sky, and explains to Alma that the regalia stars signify that the clan is one of the 7 big clans recognized by the government. After explaining just how advanced the seekers in such clans are, Noel stretches his hand to the sky and swears on his mama that they'll be part of the regalia in a year. At this, Alma stares at him and suddenly remembers the moment Simon asked if she was the one who murdered Alcor. After admitting she did, Simon asked why she murdered him, and she said it was because he was weak and senile. Following that discussion, Simon then exposes Alma as Alcor's daughter, not his granddaughter, and Alma revealed that she used to be one of his girls born from some women he abducted from some village. Back when she was little, the useless piece of trash made all his offspring fight each other in some weird battle royale setting to see which one would survive and take his throne, all because he couldn't live down his defeat by overdeath. However, despite proving that she's Alcor's greatest success, Simon still refuses to let her into the society. Alma became devastated as she realized that she just wasted the best years of her life training for a lost cause. But while she cried and crashed out, Simon told her about Overdeath's grandson, who's currently a talker class seeker living in the capital, and urged her to check him out if she's interested. Now that she's seen him for herself, she hugs Noel and promises to always fight by his side. Several hundred miles away, a mysterious shapeshifter named Loki sneaks into a maximum security prison's bathroom, knocks out a rookie guard easing himself, and returns to the rookie's post after taking his form. There, he asks his partner about the death row inmate they're guarding, and the partner casually tells him it's the most notorious murderer in the entire capital, Hugo. By dawn the next day, Noel does his morning routine, which involves running 2 laps around the entire capital with huge weights on his back, and takes a cold shower afterwards. After his shower, he walks into his room, only to find Alma already there. Initially, she tries teasing him a bit, but when Noel doesn't pay any attention to her, she pushes him on his bed, holds him down, and while massaging her honeypot with his rocket launcher, leans in for a sloppy kiss. Irritated, Noel struggles to get her off him, but when he realizes that Alma's grip is way too strong, he headbutts her. Moments later, while the duo walks around town, Alma spots a couple holding hands, interlocks her arms with Noel's, claiming that they're going on a date, and asks Noel where he plans to take her. For their first location, Noel takes her to the Appraisers Guild to get her class appraised and ranked by the gnomes. While they wait for a seeker to finish his appraisal, Noel tells Alma about the small mark that usually appears on a seeker's chest or backhand whenever they're due for a rank up, and then asks if she's finally decided to rank up her assassin class, only for Alma to tell him that she doesn't know yet. As they continue discussing, Noel reveals that he plans on recruiting at least one more member to join their party, and although Alma gets sad that she'll soon have to share Noel with someone else, she keeps her cool. Following their visit to the Appraisers Guild, Noel buys Alma some fried buns and takes her to the dwarf-run smithy to get their weapons and armor maintained. After that, he goes to the skill bookstore to buy her a skill guide. There, he meets with the librarian on shift, instructs her to guide Alma to buy the right skill guides, and then leaves Alma there with a budget of $1 million so that he can get his own skill guides at a different store. Moments later, when the two reconvene at an outdoor cafe, Alma shows Noel the armor-piercing spell guide that she bought for $800,000, as well as the stuffed bear she bought to replace him as her hug pillow, and then asks Noel if he was able to buy his skill guide. Unfortunately, Noel says he couldn't because the exorcism guide, which teaches a talker like him how to wipe out an undead army instantly, was valued at $30 million. Just then, a suspicious figure that Noel oddly recognizes suddenly passes beside them, and Noel immediately excuses himself to follow the person. When they get to the slums, the suspicious person reveals himself to be Loki, and an irritated Noel chastises him for bringing him to that filthy place for a trade. Loki apologizes, claiming he was just being extra careful, then hands over an envelope containing information on Hugo, the prisoner Noel tasked him to investigate. While Noel checks out the intel, Loki asks why he's so interested in having a criminal like Hugo join his party, and Noel says it's because he suspects that the guy was framed. After confirming the intel, Noel commends Loki for holding up his reputation as the best informant in the capital, pays him in full, and tells him to continue investigating. However, right before he leaves, Loki tells Noel about the bad drug that's been getting a little too popular on the streets lately, one that gives its users a high so strong that it makes them go crazy and murder people. Curious, Noel asks Loki why the Luciano family, which is the mafia family Finocchio hails from, hasn't stopped the circulation yet, and Loki says it's because the drug is being distributed by the Gambino family, a Luciano subfamily led by a real nutcase, Albert Gambino, who happens to be the former boss's illegitimate son. By the time Lycia joins Alma at the cafe lunch table, Noel ends his meeting with Loki, and, while strolling through the slums, thinks about the sad way the kind former leader of the Gambino family died. Before long, he spots a beggar with unusual facial features named Koga, and begins to wonder if he's an immigrant. Out of pity for the poor guy, Noel drops a silver coin and quietly walks by the guy. But to his shock, Koga gets up and tries to give him his money back, thinking he was a girl. Irritated, Noel tells Koga his correct gender, rage baits Koga by calling him filthy, and tells him he doesn't need the money. However, when Koga charges at him, Noel kicks him in the stomach and warns him to know his place. Refusing to back down, Koga gets back on his feet, takes the stance of an experienced fighter, and gives Noel one more chance to apologize for being a two-faced jerk. When Noel refuses to apologize, Koga attacks him, but to his surprise, Noel dodges his first set of attacks and yeets him away. Now seething with anger, Koga unleashes an aura of fire that shrouds his entire body to show that he's getting serious. But when Noel sees this, he gasps in excitement as he slowly realizes that Koga might be his next team member. Unfortunately, as they're about to begin round 2, Koga's slave master Miguel shows up, stops the fight, and punishes Koga for disobeying his orders by electrocuting the poor guy with his oath of subordination ring. Afterwards, Miguel spots Noel and starts trying to woo him, since he also thought he was a girl. Irritated, Noel kicks the idiot to the wall, presses his gun against his throat, and demands that he reveal where he comes from. Miguel immediately responds, telling him that he's from a town called Soldiland, down south. But to explain the reason why he's there, Miguel says he used to run the D'Alembert family's underground fighting ring until he got caught skimming contributions to the boss and escaped to the capital, where D'Alembert can't reach him. Moving on, Noel then asks about Koga, and Miguel says Koga's his best gladiator, whom he trained from the ground up. With this, Noel figures out Miguel's sleazy plan to fight his way to the top in the capital and continue his business here. But when Miguel tries to cajole him into the business, Noel tells him he's a seeker and isn't interested in his useless business. Hearing this, Miguel freaks out. But as he tries to apologize for his stupidity, Noel sticks his gun in his mouth, seriously convinced to murder him and have Koga free for himself, and intentionally misses the shot. Afterwards, Noel gives the annoying twerp 10 seconds to get out of his face, so Miguel runs up to Koga, wakes him up, and runs away with him. While watching them, Noel expresses his disappointment at Koga for still choosing to serve under Miguel, even though Koga is strong enough to eliminate him. That's not someone he wants on the team, so Noel forgets him and returns to the cafe, where he finds Lycia and Alma chatting, and is coerced into paying for their lunches. Soon after, Lycia asks him why he took so long to get back, implying he went to search for recruits, but Noel lies, saying he stepped out for something else. When Lycia asks him what that was, he tells them about the nasty drug, and urges Lycia to warn Wolf and the rest of her party to be careful. Confused, Lycia replies that it's very unusual for him to be worrying about them. But after Noel assures her that he's just sharing intel with a colleague, she gets up, chats a little more with Alma, and leaves for work. Meanwhile, Miguel and Koga are soon caught and forced to appear before the worst person ever, Albert Gambino. After trash-talking them for fleeing to the capital, Albert meticulously explains how he'll skin them alive, stuff their innards into sausages, and ship them back to Soldiland. Hearing this, Miguel freaks out, but as Albert's assistant, Laios, is about to begin the skinning, one of Albert's servants brings the mayor to the office for a discussion, and Albert lets him in. Inside, the mayor reveals everything that happened between him and Noel, including how Noel stole all the money he had to repay his debts, and then lies to Albert that Noel undermined the Gambino family by calling them weak and insignificant. Unfortunately, Albert has the intelligence of a potato, so he believes the mayor and promises to punish Noel for what he did. Unfortunately, just when the mayor thinks he's out of trouble, Albert accuses him of going back on his word to them and decides to cut off his right arm as punishment. As the mayor stares in disbelief, Albert turns to Koga, whom he recognizes to be a longswordsman, and orders him to lop off the mayor's right arm with his walking stick. While Koga picks up the walking stick, Albert takes a dose of that bad drug and goes berserk. Then he orders Koga to continue. In less than a second, Koga slices off the mayor's right hand like Tanjiro from Demon Slayer, making Albert so happy and fulfilled that he immediately adopts Koga as his slave and has Laios take Koga to the dressing so that he can change into some good drip. Moments later, while he dresses up, Koga remembers his origin story and reveals that, long before he was born, his successful father and mother both lived a luxurious life, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't conceive. One day, while they prayed at the temple, two useless scoundrels knocked his dad out, assaulted his mother, and even busted their load inside her. By the time his dad woke up and found his wife half unclothed, the reality hit him really hard, but even still, he refused to abandon her. Shortly after that incident, his mother got pregnant with him and gave birth to him some months later. But his dad never accepted the baby because he knew Koga wasn't his. Over the next year, he tortured the poor woman until one night when she ended her life out of shame. Several years later, Koga grew into a responsible boy and tried to get in his father's good graces, but his father still didn't accept him. Instead, he treated him like a nobody and sold him off as a slave to Miguel. Over the next few years, Koga learned to fight like an animal. One day, after Koga fought and won a huge matchup in Miguel's underground fighting ring and winning, Miguel showered him with praises for making him good money, and Koga teared up because that was the first time he'd ever been praised in all his life. To ensure the praise doesn't stop, he continued winning all his fights to keep making Miguel even more money, and somehow ended up as Albert's executioner. Later that night, Noel meets up with Loki in an abandoned building for an impromptu meeting, and soon learns that the Gambino family is after his life. However, as they move on to discuss Albert's family's background as the illegitimate child of the former boss, Noel feels the aura of an armed person approaching him and realizes that Loki sold him out. In his defense, Loki admits that Albert threatened to murder him if he didn't, and also paid him handsomely for doing it, so he had no choice. At this, Noel calmly draws his magic gun and swears that he's going to end Loki's life right there. But Loki oddly doesn't resist. When Noel asks why, Loki says it's because he just realized that he sold his pride and honor as an informant, and feels dying is his best punishment. After a brief silence, Noel tells Loki to leave the building and promises to destroy the Gambino family from the ground up. After Loki leaves, Noel drinks a battle stimulant potion, which increases his prowess for 10 minutes, and gets ready to battle. However, when Koga appears from the darkness, they both get the shock of their lives, because neither of them expected the other to be there. Nonetheless, Noel still points his gun at Koga to continue their bout, but Koga refuses to draw his sword because he feels indebted to Noel for giving him that silver coin. Unfortunately, since he still can't ignore his orders, Koga reveals his skills as a C-rank longswordsman to Noel to make the fight fair, and Noel also reveals himself as a talker who inherited the skills of Overdeath. With that settled, the battle begins with Noel firing a magic shot at Koga, only for Koga to dodge at lightning speed and counterattack. After dodging Koga's counter, Noel fires a magic flame bullet at Koga, which releases a large flame that engulfs Koga, but to his shock, Koga cuts the air around with multiple slashes to create a vacuum that the fire can't penetrate, and continues fighting Noel in close combat on a cement platform. Somewhere along the line, Noel tries to cut Koga's balls, but when Koga dodges that, he flashbangs the guy, blinding him, and lunges at him to deliver the final blow. Sensing the danger, Koga freezes multiple slashes in the air and releases them all at Noel, but Noel still evades them all, not knowing that the slashes already weakened the platform where he stood. When Koga attacks from behind, Noel accidentally steps on a weak spot while trying to dodge him. In the heat of the moment, he invokes the Stun Howl voice command to stun Koga, but Koga slices through it, cuts the platform even further, and watches Noel fall. When he hits the ground, Noel passes out immediately, only for him to wake up a few minutes later to find Koga pointing his sword at him and giving him some unnecessary praise. Enraged, Noel asks Koga why he didn't finish him when he had the chance, and Koga starts stuttering. Irritated, Noel grabs Koga's blade with his hands and trash-talks him for being a wimp who pities his enemies. After hearing Noel's words, Koga starts having an identity crisis, but before he snaps out of it, Alma shows up to take things from there. Around that time, the battle stimulant potion wears off, so Noel sits this one out and instructs Alma to destroy Koga with no mercy. Almost instantly, Alma lunges at Koga with murderous intent, and the duo clash swords for a few seconds. While they're at it, Koga warns Alma to back off from fighting him, as he doesn't like fighting girls. But then Alma, who thinks she's way stronger than Koga, tells him to fight her with all his strength. After some more minutes of baseless battle yapping, Alma finally decides to fight seriously. She activates and upgrades her Axel skill 5-fold and surrounds Koga with her afterimages. However, the moment she throws her knives at him, Koga takes the same battle stance from earlier, engulfing himself in a fire shroud, and uses a skill he calls Crazy Cherry Blossoms to deflect the knives. After that, he activates the ultimate scout technique called Calm and Serene, which heightens his other senses at the cost of him temporarily losing his vision, and continues blocking and parrying all of Alma's attacks, leaving her completely shocked. When Noel sees this, the harsh reality of his situation dawns on him. No matter how hard he tries as a talker, there are still heights he'll never reach. With this realization, Noel changes his original dream of becoming the strongest seeker on his own and decides to be the guy who controls the strongest to be the strongest. Around that same time, Alma and Koga pause fighting to activate their ultimate techniques and fight round 3 till one of them dies. Thankfully, before that happens, Noel shoots a bright signal flare to the sky, orders them to stop fighting, and dismisses them after giving Koga a message to deliver to Albert. The following day, Albert invites Koga to his office and gives him a box containing Miguel's severed head, claiming that he made Miguel take the fall for his screw-up. Scared for his life, Koga swears to bring back Noel's head next time, but as he leaves the office, he pauses and tells Albert that Noel Stolen is working hard to take out the Gambino family. Hearing this, Albert goes crazy and immediately orders Laios to gather their men that instant so they can track Noel down. Outside the office, Laios calls Koga to the side and scolds him for failing to take Noel out. Koga immediately starts apologizing for being sloppy, but when Laios asks why he spared Noel, Koga says it's because he found Noel to be a very amazing person who, despite being a talker, went toe-to-toe with him with the determination of a winner in his eyes. Hearing this, Laios says some very gay stuff about being taken with another man, then he leaves after telling a confused Koga that he'll understand one day. A few hours later, Albert visits Noel at the Seeker's Tavern, looking like a horribly made Frankenstein doll, and tries to intimidate him. When Noel remains calm, the brain-dead buffoon takes his seat, drinks Noel's wine, and continues trying to rage bait him. When Noel finally responds, he insults the arrogant idiot so badly that Albert draws his knife and threatens to murder Noel. Before that happens, Logan the Roid Lord spawns and reminds him that he's in a sacred place for Seekers, so he's not allowed to run mad there, because they have a reputation to uphold. At this, Albert tries throwing his weight around, but when Logan and the boys still refuse to budge, he orders Laios and the others to take them all out. As the only person there with a functioning brain, Laios calls his boss to the side and warns him of the repercussions they might face from the government if they mass murder all the Seekers in the tavern. Realizing that he's right, Albert rescinds his order and considers other options. Just then, Noel cackles, calls Albert a mad dog with no brains or charisma, and reveals that he poisoned the wine he nonchalantly drank earlier. Hearing this, Albert drops his knife and immediately tries throwing up to get the poison out of his system, but when Noel tells him that won't work, he runs out of the tavern to get to the nearest hospital. Shortly after, Laios, who stayed back, compliments Noel for being a smooth talker and gulps down the rest of the wine he claims to have poisoned. After calling Noel out for lying about the poisoning, he spots the determination Koga was yapping about in his eyes, settles the bill for the wine, and gives Noel and Alma a chance to leave the capital to avoid any more trouble. Since this is all part of his plan, Noel and Alma surprisingly leave the capital without any hassle and part ways to train and continue investigating the Gambino family for the next few days. About a week later, they return to the capital and boldly face the delusional Albert with new intel. During their outdoorsy meeting, Albert trash-talks Noel and orders his men to destroy Noel, but to his surprise, Laios and the others didn't even budge. Confused, Albert demands an explanation from Laios, but Noel cackles and tells him that he's lost any right to call himself their boss. Explaining further, Noel tells Albert about the time he found some underlings complaining to Laios about Albert's terrible leadership and decision-making, revealing that it all happened right after Albert ordered them to murder the rest of the mayor's family, including Chelsea. At the time, Noel already knew Albert was finished, so he gave Laios Albert's real birth certificate, which revealed that Albert was never the former boss's son, despite the affair with his mother. Afterward, Noel says he arranged another meeting with Loki and tasked him to investigate the former boss's cause of death by tracking down the doctor who witnessed it. At this, Laios turns to Albert and accuses him of lying about being the former boss's son, as well as poisoning the former boss, then bribing his doctor to cover it up. Scared for his life, Albert starts demanding proof, but Noel creeps closer to him and reveals that he used confess to force the doctor to admit everything. With Albert left speechless, Laios promises to give him one more chance to remain their boss if he can defeat Noel in single combat, either personally or by choosing a proxy to represent him. However, just as Albert starts whining, Finocchio suddenly arrives in his fancy carriage to witness the duel. While Albert continues freaking out, Noel calmly reveals that he already contacted Finocchio prior and struck a deal. In exchange for $50 million, Noel agreed to help him get rid of Albert for tarnishing the family name by peddling that dangerous drug, and Finocchio easily agreed. Now that he's there, Finocchio threatens to cut off Albert's balls if he doesn't pick his proxy quickly, and Albert, left with no other choice, ultimately chooses Koga as his proxy. At this, Alma, who'd been raring for a rematch to the death with Koga, steps up to fight him, but Noel stops her, ignores her warnings, and walks up to Koga. Soon after drinking the battle stimulant potion a second time, Noel gives Koga that look of determination, which makes Koga giddy, and exchanges a few snide remarks to get them in the mood to fight. Once Pinocchio gives the signal for the battle to begin, Noel draws first blood by shooting a magic ice bullet at Koga. As Koga tries to block it with the crazy cherry blossom skill, the bullet explodes, creating a massive iceberg that traps both of them in a confined space. Nonetheless, their battle continues, with Koga doing his best to overwhelm Noel quickly, and Noel defending against all his attacks. At one point, Koga switches strategies and takes the stance Noel recognizes as the EI Flash stance. Noel knows that EI Flash, which increases Koga's attack power several-fold, will be a problem for him. But since he's already planted all traps he needs to defeat Koga beforehand, he drops his gun, claiming he's out of ammo, and challenges Koga to a close combat fight. Right before Koga agrees, Noel tells him some gibberish to get him distracted, and it works. In that split second of confusion, Noel immediately dashes at the guy. When Koga notices this, he draws his sword to defend himself, but Noel blocks the draw by placing his forearm in the sword's path. Irritated, Koga immediately dashes past Noel to get his sword back. Then he breaks the iceberg they're trapped in and takes a swing at Noel as Noel gets flung backwards. Unfortunately for him, once the ice dust settles, Koga realizes that he accidentally cut one of Noel's ice bullets, and this causes his entire body to slowly freeze over. With Koga immobilized, Noel knocks him out with a roaring thunder kick from above and leaves the poor guy lying on the ground. As Koga drifts into his subconscious, memories flash before his eyes, and he realizes how weak he was for always living as a loyal slave. After seeing someone like Noel refuse to be controlled, despite being a talker, Koga begins to wonder if he might have fought harder for his freedom if he were as strong and had the balls of steel Noel currently has. For now, though, he keeps on resting, while Noel attends to the aftermath of winning the battle. Following a quick discussion with Laios, Noel meets up with Alma in a room inside the building to get his battle wounds treated. After getting patched up, Alma and Noel get into a lover's quarrel and tease each other until Pinocchio suddenly shows up and requests some privacy to discuss an important matter with Noel. After Alma leaves, Pinocchio outrightly offers Noel a spot in the Luciano family again. But when Noel refuses, just like the first time, Pinocchio moves on to ask Noel if he knows about his Punisher Scout specialty class. Just as Noel's about to answer him, Pinocchio removes the napkin covering the stuff on his left hand and shows Noel his beating heart. Confused, Noel immediately clutches his chest and demands an explanation. Pinocchio responds, telling him that he used his judgment skill, which enables him to pluck a person's heart from their chest against their will after they refuse a request twice from him. And an even more confused Noel asks why he's still alive. Soon after telling him that it's because his heart is still spatially connected to him, Pinocchio moves on to admit that he's being this extreme because he fears Noel's intellect and guts could one day bring disaster upon the Luciano family. Even though he could crush Noel's heart and end his life right there, he still offers him one last chance to join the Luciano family. Upon refusing the offer a third time, Noel gets up to fight for his heart, but Pinocchio warns him not to because the heart can't return to his chest unless he dispels the skill. Realizing that he's right, Noel encourages Pinocchio to crush his heart now while he still can, because if he doesn't, then he'll grow into a seeker so strong that even the Luciano family won't be able to touch him. While Pinocchio considers ending him, Noel also reminds him that if he squishes his heart right now, then he'll lose all dignity he has as the boss of the Barzini subfamily, because then he'll be labeled a spineless coward who murdered an unarmed man, so he'd better pick his poison wisely. Soon after rethinking his initial threat, Pinocchio concludes that murdering Noel isn't worth losing his position over, so he returns Noel's heart, heads out of the room, and leaves. The following morning, Noel signs the necessary documents to officially become Koga's new slave master. However, before accepting him into the team, Noel tells Koga his sole desire, which is to be the strongest seeker, reveals that he needs someone smart and witty. Then he frees him so he can choose his next path as a free man. At first, Koga gets a little confused, but eventually, he decides to join Noel's party and ensure Noel achieves his desires. Right after welcoming Koga as the party's third member, Noel takes both Koga and Alma to a protected space in the mountains to fight a goblin army. There, he buffs Alma and uses her to clear the goblin mages. Then he has her use the armor piercing to clear the goblin vanguards so that Koga can slip past their defense. Once that happens, Noel stuns the foot soldiers with Stun Howl, shoots a thunderbolt to destroy them at once, and then orders Koga to take down the goblin general. Koga does this easily, but right after ending the battle, he gets in a fight with Alma, claiming that she's trying to steal his glory by cutting off the general's head. Thankfully, before things escalate, Noel shows up, scolds both of them, and commends them for doing a good job. Afterwards, he decides that they're strong enough to start a clan, and then promises to submit an application to the capital's government upon their return. Hearing this, Alma and Koga ask necessary questions about clans, but right after getting answers, Koga spots a rank-up mark on Noel's back hand and informs him. Seeing this, Noel realizes he's getting one step closer to being a B-rank talker, so he immediately begins his journey back to the capital. A few days later, Noel does his monthly checkup on Brandon's winery, but while he's at it, an inspector with the Seekers Guild, Harold, shows up and requests a private meeting with Noel. After getting them a private room, Harold pulls up a picture of a demonic beast lord with fairy-like wings, taken on the day Noel's hometown got destroyed, and claims that the creature is likely the same demon lord that destroyed his hometown. When Noel doesn't act shocked or surprised, Harold asks why, and he says it's because in the aftermath of the destruction that day, he noticed that the demon lord's body and Brandon's battle axe were missing. That said, he then asks Harold if he's already defeated the demon lord, but Harold says that every clan and party they sent to destroy it was obliterated. At some point, they sent the legendary submaster of the Supreme Dragon clan, Zeke, after it, but soon realized that the demon lord had already retreated to the demonic realm. Seeing this, Harold and his team investigated the demon lord and discovered that it has free will and is so strong that they fear it can become a new Valiant, unlike the others, who survive solely on instinct. For context, Noel explains that the Valiants are a group of 10 demon lords with an abyssal depth rating of 13 and are powerful enough to destroy the world. However, since the last one appeared 40 years ago and wiped out 3 countries before Brandon's clan defeated it, Harold fears this new demon lord could threaten humanity again. Upon noticing Noel's reaction to the news, Harold spots that look of determination in his eyes, the same look Brandon had back then, and advises that Noel take the Seeker's exam since he's turning 15 soon, then leaves. A few months later, Noel, Alma, and Koga visit Harold's house for an interview regarding their clan application. As the interview begins, Harold revisits the details of their clan application and raises concerns about their accomplishments and abilities. To prove that they can get stronger, Noel shows Harold his rank-up mark, promising to upgrade both himself and Alma to B rank soon. But by then, Harold concludes the interview and rejects Noel's clan application, claiming that the Seekers Guild doesn't have time to develop greenhorn clans like theirs. When Noel asks why, Harold says it's because their scouts recently discovered colossal amounts of mana flowing underground the Empire, and are afraid that the critical currents might cause the whole channel to erupt in a year if they don't act quickly. If that happens, Harold says the mana explosion will generate a supermassive abyss that'll ultimately manifest a Valiant. Shocked, Koga asks whether they can disrupt the flow, but Harold says they can't risk it because the underground channels will burst and render life on land unlivable. With all that being said, Harold ends the interview and asks Noel's party to leave his house. Although Noel gets a little salty about this setback, he wears a passive-aggressive look on his face and swears to be back with enough experience next time they meet. On their way back, Noel tells Koga and Alma, who are scared that this is the end, that this setback is an incredible chance for them to shoot right up the ladder. To explain, he takes them to an alleyway and further explains the economic and social benefits that defeating a Valiant demon lord brings to the Empire. Afterwards, he gets up, stresses the importance of them joining the regalia as a clan, and then reveals that they're going to have to do that in 6 months. While Koga and Alma stare at the madman in shock, Noel yaps about the other things they need to do to get there in 6 months. Suddenly, he hears the Empire's town crier nearby, shouting praises to Zeke of the Supreme Dragon, who apparently just defeated a demon lord with an abyssal depth rating of 12 and realizes that they need to instigate an event that will grab the attention of the masses. Not long after, Noel visits the Appraisers Guild to undergo the rank advancement ritual and become a B-rank strategist, which is a high-ranking specialization of the talker class. Soon after upgrading his rank, Noel reveals that his new strategist class helps him analyze battles in real time, so he can accurately predict what happens in the short future. On his way back home, he spots Zeke surrounded by a bunch of hoes begging him to pop their cherries with his huge monster-slaying DIH and stops by to observe him. When Zeke spots him, he approaches him and tries to recruit the notorious talker into his party. Noel acts like he's confused at first, but when Zeke exposes him as the one who crushed the Gambino family, he drops the act and accuses Zeke of going roundabout just to recruit him. Upon realizing that he's been caught, Zeke outrightly asks Noel to join his clan, but Noel rejects his offer immediately. Irritated, Zeke insinuates using brute force to get him to join, but Noel promises to join the Supreme Dragon if Zeke can prove that he's much stronger than his rival, Leo, who happens to be the only X-rank seeker who can stand up to him. Hearing this, Zeke immediately loses his composure because he knows that if he and Leo duel, then one of them will surely die. To avoid embarrassing himself, he lets Noel go. But before long, two random losers stroll nearby and recognize Zeke as the second best seeker in the capital. Enraged, Zeke approaches them and asks them why they call him the second best, but the moment they say it's because Leo has soloed more demon lords than he has, Zeke blows them up. Meanwhile, Alma and Lycia finish their training in the woods and stop by the river to wash up. However, as they discuss the results of their training, Lycia's childhood friend, an elf archer named Ophelia, says hi. After the niceties, Lycia oddly introduces Alma as a new seeker she's mentoring, and avoids affiliating her with Noel for some weird reason. Before long, the other members of Ophelia's party show up, the first being Kaim the Lancer, the second being Vaclav, a furry summoner, and the last being their trusty leader, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes Leon. Following the introduction, Ophelia urges Alma to come to her for anything she needs, and then warns her to watch out for that notorious jerk they call Noel Stolen. Since she didn't know Alma was under Noel, Ophelia starts saying all sorts of stupid things people claim Noel did, until Leon urges her to stop badmouthing the poor guy, then leaves. Later that night, Noel meets with Loki and checks the records of the list of B-rank parties to find his next target. When he finds out about Leon's party, as well as his holier-than-thou personality, Noel decides to exploit his weakness to climb up the ladder. Soon after, Noel ends his meeting with Loki and visits the maximum security prison to see Hugo. After the niceties, Hugo asks Noel if he's still bent on clearing his name and recruiting him into his party, and Noel assures him that he is. Aside from the fact that Hugo was once considered a seeker prodigy, Noel wants to recruit him because his calm demeanor, plus the nature of his class, puppeteer, have made him very successful at clearing dungeons and abysses as an independent seeker with no party affiliations. Despite all that, Hugo reminds Noel that he'll soon be executed. But to prove how serious he is about getting him out, Noel commands the guard behind them and assures Hugo that he has the guards, as well as the escape plan, all under control. Although this makes Hugo a little happy, he tells Noel that even if he manages to get out, he's not joining their party because he hates seekers for being violent and overconfident fools. Unfazed, Noel asks if he really thinks of him that way, but when Hugo says he knows Noel has that dog in him, Noel promises to come back for him and leaves. The following night, Noel takes Alma and Koga to the B-rank Seekers Tavern, where Leon and his party member are currently, and enters there without a care in the world. Inside, a gigantic musclehead named Edgar approaches Noel and tries to intimidate, but by the time Noel's done dishing out his snide comments, poor Edgar rushes back to his seat like a good little boy. Moments later, while they dine by the bartender, Ophelia passes by and notices Alma sitting close to someone like Noel. However, before she can put a name to his face, Noel hides his face to avoid spooking her, and asks Alma, via link communication, how she knows Ophelia. When Alma tells him how she first met Ophelia and how much she hates him, Noel decides to start a fight because he knows Ophelia works with Leon. With this, he boldly introduces himself, and rage baits the shallow-minded Ophelia until she gives him the reaction he's looking for. At one point, she tries to grab Noel, but Koga stops her just in time and threatens to slice her into if she ever dares to lay her hands on his master. Around that same time, Leon notices the commotion, so he walks up to Noel's table and apologizes on Ophelia's behalf when he finds out how stupid she's behaving. At this, Noel knows he's supposed to chill out, but rather than doing that, he tells Ophelia that she's dumber than a mutt, and this gets Leon so angry that he passive-aggressively tells him to take back what he just said. When Noel continues rage-baiting them, Ophelia introduces the person rage-baiting as the infamous Noel, and almost instantly, Leon realizes that he's talking to a wall. He tries returning some part of the rage bait to Noel, but when Noel hits him back 3 times harder, Leon just gives up and angrily walks out of the bar with his party members. Afterwards, Koga and Alma feel bad for Leon, but Noel tells them that insulting them is part of his wicked plan to use them as a stepping stone to achieve his goal. Meanwhile, Harold and his tomboy granddaughter Marion get into a little argument about who should command their forces against the Valiant. While Harold thinks Noel is a good fit for the job, Marion seems to think Leo or Zeke, the first and second strongest seekers in the capital, will eventually command their forces. After trying and failing to agree, the duo makes a wager for the future. If Noel doesn't become their supreme commander, Harold will relinquish his position as the house head to her. However, if the reverse is the case, then Marion will have no choice but to learn to be a proper baddie. Meanwhile, Kym is walking the night streets when he suddenly recalls the first time he met Leon and saved him from a bunch of bullies, back when they were much younger. After chasing the idiots away, little Kym told little Leon to try fighting back sometimes, but Leon told him back then that fighting violence with violence isn't the right thing to do. Hearing this, Kym tried to convince Leon to change his thinking. But when Leon refused to budge, Bro gave up and moved on to convince Leon to become a seeker with him. Years later, their party was born. But during a fierce battle against a forest drake monster with an abyssal depth rating of 7, called an Ajatar, Kym found himself struggling to restrain it. Left with no other choice, he had Leon use his ultimate skill, Seraphim Blade, on him and the monster, and managed to dodge it just in time to avoid getting hit by it. In the end, they defeated the Ajatar, but Leon rushed over to make sure his buddy was doing okay, and the two lived happily ever after till they met Noel. Following his quick memory recap, Kym joins Leon in another bar and asks why he got so agitated in his conversation with Noel earlier. When Leon admits that he doesn't know, Kym convinces him that he must have envied Noel for being so young, strong, and cocky. Leon realizes he's right, but while he admires Noel's tenacity and methods, Kym brings out an envelope he claims the Seekers Guild sent them, and reveals that Harold and his buddies want parties with proven track records to hurry up and form clans. Hearing this, Leon remembers that he also got one, but just when he starts talking about setting up a meeting, Kym tells him he and the others have already discussed and agreed to the terms. This gets Leon a little salty, but Kym babies him back to normal, and the duo continues enjoying the night. The next morning, Leon and Kym visit Harold's place to tender their clan application. But Harold outrightly rejects it because they lack the hunger and drive to perpetually aim higher. Pissed, Kym demands to know why the Seekers Guild sent them the interview invitation letters if they were going to reject them anyway. But to his surprise, Harold tells them that they never sent out any letters, meaning that they've been pranked. As Harold's about to end the meeting, Leon gets up and begs him to give them one more chance. Feeling sorry for him, Harold, who agrees to give them another chance, promises to approve their application if they can defeat a Dantalian monster with an abyssal depth rating of 8. When Leon accepts the task, Harold tells them that they'll be competing against another party to defeat the monster. Whoever completes the task will get their clan application approved. However, just as Leon's about to ask for their rival party's name, Noel waltzes in and introduces himself as their rival. After the niceties, Harold sits and asks if they're familiar with Dantalians. Noel responds, explaining that they're cruel, monkey-like beasts who can read people's minds with their forehead's third eye. Then he asks Harold if it's okay to take out the other party before they go for the Dantalian. Harold affirms that they can, but he forbids murdering anybody. Hearing this, Noel then suggests that Harold mandate everyone to be present on the day of the test to avoid any ambush or surprise attacks from both parties. Harold also agrees to that, but he tells the party members that since this test is a special case, whichever party loses will be forced to disband and be barred from partying up again in the future. Satisfied with the rules, Leon and Noel sign the necessary documents, and Harold dismisses to prepare and reconvene for the test in 3 days. 3 days later, both parties gather near the Dantalian's abyss. However, once Harold gives the signal to begin the test, Leon's party is just about to rush into battle when they suddenly spot Noel and his party members chilling and having a picnic. Shocked, Leon asks Noel why he's having lunch in a competition, but knowing Noel, he just rage baits and wastes Leon's time. Thankfully, before Leon falls victim to Noel's rage bait, Kym calms him down and urges him to just forget about him. Once inside the abyss, Ophelia pinpoints the Dantalian's location using her scout powers. But as they're about to start the battle, Vaclav tells Leon that Noel approached him and tried to get him to betray their party, claiming that he'll be free if he does so. Although he said no, Vaclav says Noel might have approached the other members too, and by then, Ophelia and Kym also admit that Noel approached them. Leon is flabbergasted that Noel would even go that far to turn everyone against him, but Kym and the others assure him that they're good. Around that same time, the Dantalian's little vanguards attack them, forcing them into battle. But while they're at it, Koga and Alma, who are both worried, ask Noel if he's sure it's okay to sit idly by while their competition surpasses them. And Noel assures them that it's all part of the plan. Aside from the fact that their competition surpasses them in ability, Noel notes that Leon's a strong leader who's not just strong, but has exceptional decision-making ability. plus a unique heavenly skill called Angel Wings that allows him to activate skills at the speed of thought. His only issue is his irritating Mr. Nice Guy personality, and Noel says he's already planted the seeds of distrust in the other party members by telling them that Leon will eventually betray them if they don't betray him first. As the test continues, Noel recalls the moment he visited Kime alone in a bar and advised him to betray his party. At first, Kime laughed at him, but Noel assured him that if he betrays the party, then his freedom is assured. Confused, Kime asks why he thinks he needs to be free, and Noel says that it's because he knows that Kime, as well as the others, must find it very hard to keep up with someone like Leon, who's incredibly special and talented. Although he's right, and Kime admits that he does feel jealous of Leon's strength at times, Bro isn't trying to switch teams mid-game, so he tells Noel that he's still going to support Leon as his sworn brother. Now, Kime and his party have trouble keeping up with the Dantalion's craziness and attack strength, even after fighting it for an entire hour because of its annoying mind-reading abilities. As a last resort, Leon tries unleashing a wide-area Angel Wings attack called Divine Impact, but the Dantalion leaps into the air to dodge it, and then throws several small rocks at Leon and his peeps. Amid the hubbub, Ophelia breaks her right arm, so Leon immediately orders his subordinates to retreat and sets up a holy shield to protect them. As Vaclav and Kime rush Ophelia out of there, the crazy monkey slams its head on Leon's holy shield and tries to provoke him into giving up. Enraged, Leon unleashes a powerful light skill called Invincible, which blinds the Dantalion and quickly retreats into Vaclav's concealing barrier, where no beast can see through. After healing Ophelia's broken hand, Kime suggests that Leon repeat the risky tactic they used to defeat the Agitar, where he acts as the decoy, and Leon finishes it with Seraphim Blade. But Leon refuses, as he fears he might hit them. Since sneak attacks can't work, Kime tells Leon that they can still try taking the monster out with a huge attack such as the Seraphim Blade. When Leon still refuses to agree, Kime gets pissed and reminds him of what happens if they retreat now. At this, Leon gets really desperate and suggests the worst thing they can do in this scenario. He suggests that they team up with Noel's party so they can work together to defeat the Dantalion without sacrificing anybody. When Ophelia asks about the test, he tells her that working together to bring down the beast should still keep them together as a party. At that point, Kime loses his temper and confronts Leon for being such a spineless coward. Although Leon claims that he wants to avoid sacrificing any of them, Kime thinks he's just being a big baby who would rather trust their real enemy, Noel, all just to run from his problems. To further clarify things, Kime asks Leon one time if he trusts Noel over him, and the moment Leon affirms that he does, Kime breaks down as he realizes Noel was right about Leon being the traitor. Left with no other choice, he stabs Leon in the belly, avoiding his vitals, then yaps some stupid nonsense while watching Leon lie on the ground until the monster figures out their location. Just as it's about to attack them, Noel shows up, presents himself as the Dantalion's enemy, and commands Koga to attack it without thinking, so the Dantalion can't read their minds. As Koga's attacks keep coming, the Dantalion gets a little confused because it can't read Koga's mind and attacks. But Noel reveals that he'd previously trained with Koga using Link so that Koga could attack with a blank mind. At one point, the Dantalion gives Noel an opening, and Noel shoots a $10 million Garmer bullet that pierces the Dantalion in the chest. As it bleeds, the Dantalion starts complaining that it can't read Noel's mind. But that's because Noel's strategist ability makes him think so fast that the Dantalion can't understand his thoughts. Enraged, the Dantalion tries attacking randomly to throw Noel off balance to read his thoughts, but Noel switches to high-speed parallel thoughts to give it a bad headache. Eventually, the Dantalion yanks out its third eye and lunges at Noel to rip him apart, but at the last second, Alma accels towards it to slaughter it. Sensing the danger, the Dantalion quickly launches a surprise attack to strike Alma, but Alma uses her B-rank assassin skill, Phantom, to make herself intangible. Right after, she stabs a hole in the Dantalion's chest with a quick attack, murdering it instantly. Afterwards, the Abyssal Dome disappears, signifying that they've defeated the monster, and Koga gains a rank-up mark on his backhand. While they jubilate, Kime approaches Noel, looking defeated, and asks him if he foresaw and planned this exact outcome. Noel responds, telling him that everything that's happening, the guild arrangement, the type of monster they fought, and even the fake letters, was all planned by him. Hearing this, Kime loses his cool and grabs Noel, But before the rabid dog starts barking, Noel assures Kime that his and the other two's jealousy of Leon's abilities also played a big part in their clan's undoing. Shifting his focus to Leon, who seems to think that his party turned on him, Noel assures him that he also betrayed them by not trusting them when it counted. Leon is devastated because he knows Noel is telling the truth, but before he can respond, Harold shows up, announces Noel's party as the winner of the test, approves their clan application, and orders the losing party to disband immediately. A few days later, news of the test results circulates in the capital, and many seekers, including Zeke, are shocked that Leon's party was bested by the cocky scoundrel. About Leon's former party members, Ophelia leaves the capital for good, Vaclav joins a better party, and Kime sulks. As for Noel, he visits Hugo in his prison to boast about his recent achievement. Although Hugo's impressed by the news, he asks Noel what he offered them to make them turn their heads, and Noel says freedom. Meanwhile, Kime is seen in the bar wasting himself away to forget his sorrows. Feeling sorry for him, the bartender advises that he stop drinking, but Kime tells the old man that he can't outlive the fact that he stabbed his friend and ignored his orders even though he was making the right call. After hearing this, the bartender admits that Kime really messed up with the stabbing, but for now, he adds that the best thing Kime can do is to set Leon free from the insane hurt that he feels. Later that evening, Edgar and his goons corner Leon in an alleyway and beat the life out of him. Confused, Leon asks why they're hating, and Edgar says it's because he stole all the praise and glory with his holier-than-thou attitude, leaving brutes who love destruction, like them, to be ridiculed to no end. Now that he's partyless, Edgar grabs Leon by the neck to strangle him, but Noel shows up with Koga and Alma, takes out Edgar's goons, and slices off Edgar's nose when he shows attitude, teaching him a lesson never to disrespect him again. After Edgar scrams for his life, Noel turns to Leon and promises to make him their clan's submaster if he joins them, but Leon throws, blaming Noel for causing his former clan's demise. At this, Noel helps him understand that the miles-wide difference in his skill and theirs made his party doomed from the start. Although Leon clearly knows this, he tells Noel that he can't admit to it, or else all his former party members' hard work would have been for nothing. As the poor guy tears up, Noel feels an inkling of sympathy for him, so he reminds him that the world is a cruel place and swears that if Leon chooses to join his clan, then he'll be able to carve out a legacy for himself as a seeker. At this, Leon tells Noel that he really will be a traitor if he joins hands with Noel, but Noel tells him to think of himself for once and be prepared to cast everything else aside, or else his legacy will die. Finally, Leon asks Noel why he's a seeker, and when Noel says that he wants to show the world that he's the strongest seeker, Leon officially joins Noel's clan. Meanwhile, Marion, who's in a room with Harold, blames Noel for playing too dirty, but Harold says it's allowed as long as he didn't do anything illegal. Marion accuses him of letting his bias cloud his judgment, but Harold says he's already given them a new mission to defeat the Garmer in Quartz Valley with an abyssal depth rating of 9 to see their power for himself. Moments later, as Noel and his clan members walk the streets, people stare and accuse Leon of being a disappointment to the Seekers. However, just as Noel advises Leon that he pays them no mind, Kime shows up and tries to attack Noel. Leon immediately steps up to try to stop him, but Kime accuses him of being a traitor and attacks him. To save his new clan master, Leon takes Kime out with one punch, but just as he's about to join Noel and the others, he hears Kime wishing him good luck with tears in his eyes and leaves anyway. An hour later, Noel and his clan members arrive at their new clan house, a $20 million former execution site rumored to be haunted by bad luck and countless human souls. While the others fret, Noel takes out the skill guide for exorcism that he just bought and promises that he'll destroy any human souls that try attacking them. After that, he gives all of them a pendant fitted with a snake with wings, which signifies the two-faced nature of their new clan, and then names their clan the Wild Tempest. A few days later, Noel and his clan members visit the Quartz Valley to fight the Garmer there and spend the first hour tirelessly fighting its summons. As they approach their limits, Noel uses exorcism to wipe out the summons, while Leon uses his infamous Seraphim blade to finish the rest of the horde. Afterward, they escape into a cave of crystal to rest and regenerate their strength. When the Garmer inevitably finds them, Noel sets his timer to count down 146 seconds, then he approaches the Garmer and tries to stall by proposing a bogus deal. However, just as the monster's about to buy into his idea, Noel takes out a spray bottle and sprays a weird mist at the Garmer, and within seconds, the poison in the mist enters his system. The moment the monster realizes this, Noel reveals that the mist actually contained an odorless beast-only poison made from Alma's blood, and when the Garmer claims that the poison can't take him out, Noel reveals that they actually filled the entire space with poison and pretended to gas out, all just to lure it to that place intentionally. In an attempt to save himself, the Garmer tries summoning his kin, but that doesn't work because he's out of mana. To end the battle, Noel shoots the monster's head off, ending the battle, and clears the abyss. That brings us to the end of the video. What do you think happens next for Noel and his clan members? Do you think they'll be able to become a Regalia clan in just 6 months? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more anime recaps like these, watch this video instead.